treacherous, you are coming to the right place. Seek guidance. And I know we have a number of people still coming in from our Zoom waiting room. So while we have hit noon, give us just one more minute until we get a few more of our registrants in here and joined in, and we will get kicked off with our webinar today. All right, Ian, looks like we have a good sized group of people joining us. Welcome again, everyone. And as I said, you are in great hands with Ian Proud today of the Bucknell University Small Business Development Center. Thank you for joining us and good afternoon, Ian.
Thank you, Steve. I'm Ian Proud. I've been here at Bucknell a little while, but I spent most of my time developing products in industry. And so it is with that context that we start today's adventure. And an adventure it will be. I'll explain later. So many people have come to me and said, I need a prototype. And I am going to argue today that this is at most only partly true. A prototype is a $10 word that to many people seems to mean make this thing work. And I'm going to help you see beyond that, beyond that understanding, and think about product development as a holistic effort. And what I mean by that is this, that product development, and one would argue any business endeavor, really has three sides to it. Viability, should we do this? The desirability, does anybody care? And then feasibility, can we do this? Is it technically possible? And what I mean by that is, so from a desirability point of view, if we were going to build a sports car, if we were the super duper faster company of car builders, then we would look at, on the top level, what do people want in general? Where is the market moving? What are their desires in general? But then on the micro level, where do sports car buyers place value? And then in terms of feasibility, what can be built? Is hydrogen-powered engines really feasible at this time? And then can we build this particular car, a two-seater, whatever it is, okay? Then the viability side of things, should we do this? Should the super duper car company build this? Is it strategically important? Should we be in this space? And then secondarily, would we make money? So I want you to think about all those things. And would somebody volunteer for a suggestion as to what sequence what would you do first if you were doing the number ones, the top levels? What would you do first? Anybody?
And I'll second Ian's invitation. Jump right in at any time. If you have questions, as I prompted in the chat, feel free to add them here. Ian wants to hear from you. Jump right in on microphone. John.
I'd start with desirability. Hey, does anybody want one of these things? Or a bunch of more after we've gotten the prototype up?
Okay. Anybody else?
I think I agree with the desirability. Obviously, you definitely don't want to invest in something that nobody wants or needs.
Okay. So there's a dance that happens between the viability and the desirability sides of any organization. That folks are out there trying to forecast what is coming. And then the finance folks and the business planning folks are saying, yeah, but we need to go in a different direction. That's a dance that needs to happen. But then thirdly, and only once those two folks have agreed on a consensus, would the feasibility people, the engineers, start to be brought into this. So it is a multifaceted approach that is needed in product development. and it is a jungle. But before we talk about that, let's talk about your ideas. Can somebody give me an idea of what success is for them? If you are somebody involved in developing a product right now, if there's anybody on the call, can you give me an idea of what success is for you?
Success for me right now would be simply to get somebody to take a good look at what I'm doing. One of the problems I've been having because of the cost of initial development, prototype development, it's
Okay.
been difficult, getting people to take it seriously.
Okay.
It's not an in the box thing. It's not a computer app. It's something that's radically different in the area where it's going, and it's not a standard kind of entry into business right now.
Okay, thanks, Tony. I'm in the interest of time, I'm going to get into the meat and potatoes, and to do that, because it's a journey. Of course, we'll need to be outfitted properly. So I'm going to put my jungle hat on because that tells you that I'm serious. This is a multifaceted question, and there are many problems along the way, from the market to the customer, the licensing, competition, and the prototype. But it is something that is negotiable. Let's just be aware of the threats on our journey. The customer crocodile. People trip up because the problem you think you're solving may not be the issue the customer faces. They may have framed it in an incorrect way. A more common problem is that you might be inspired to solve a problem you have, but you're not necessarily your customer. And that is often reinforced by talking to your immediate family and members. And because they like you, they're going to tell you to continue. But your mother and your brother are not your customers either. Once upon a time, approximately 15 years ago, there was a study done in the New York City area where the people were interested in how folks use their kitchens. What was the efficiency of the kitchen? So they filmed a number of folks in their kitchen. They set the camera up and have them make the same meal: spaghetti and meatballs, and I know this is probably dating the study, but everybody had to preserve glasses of soda. And one lady was, she got out the stepladder, set up the stepladder, went up the steps, reached up high above her, and got something out of that tall cabinet, came back down the steps, folded the steps up, put them away, and continued making the meal. And she did this on record 5 times during the course of making that meal. But when the people running the study said, "How many times did you use your steps?" she said, "Oh, just 1 or 2. And so there's a difference, a huge difference between what people say they will do or even believe they have done and what is the actual situation is. And so when we think about understanding your customer, Tony wanted to start with desirability, and that is great. That's a wonderful place to start, but don't believe them. Take it with a pinch of salt. Don't disbelieve them, but they might not be, they don't consciously choose to lie. They just don't want to make themselves look stupid. So observe them. Watch what they actually do. An action, in this case, will be worth far more than their verbal response. Try to think about qualitative versus quantitative. Use the interviews and develop a theory, but then test it with more people until you have something worth hanging on to. Just start with the big questions. What's the meaning of life? And would you do this or that? Meaning of life first, specific questions later. That's a few thoughts on market research for you as you go out there and start talking to people. Let's suppose that you are in the 18th century and you've developed this fine piece of hardware, and you actually get a patent on it. This is true. This is somebody got a patent on this thing. If I was to get in a time machine and go back, I would ask them to figure out how many people hunt on the water, how many total, and how many of them are frustrated by their current boat. What's the issue? What is solving that problem worth to them? And then show them this picture and say, hey, this is cool, isn't it? No, you wouldn't start that at all. You would say, what do you think of what you see? And what would you pay for this? Is it worth something to you? So that people tend to get out on a limb. They get themselves out technologically and misunderstand demand for what they're doing. So asking these kinds of questions will probe for the problem to solve. And when you're thinking about the problem to solve, try not to confuse the existing answer to the answer that you could develop, because if it is already out there, your chances of innovating are slim. But if you define the problem differently, the bridge gets people and stuff from one side of the gorge to the other, then there are other ways to solve this. Can somebody think of ways that get stuff from one side to the other without using a bridge? Okay, zip line, catapult, go climb down into the bottom and climb up the other side, elevators down both sides. There are many more. A bridge is a really expensive solution to a problem, and it's conventional. It's the assumed way to do things. Yes, it works in many situations, but it's not always the solution to the problem that you're trying to solve. So define it in the broadest possible terms. Let's not get confused. We are not almost never alone. To think that we have no competition is just simply silly. There are people all over whatever situation you're talking about, thinking about and experiencing these problems. And so to think that what we're doing will be totally new and unexpected is really deluding yourself. You will have competition. And to think that we have no competition right now because people are coping with the current situation, and they're doing it in ways that is called a indirect competition. For example, I used to work in the world of playgrounds. What are the competitors to the playgrounds, you think? Not many, right? But they have loads of indirect competition, loads. They have the AYSO soccer league, they have the TV, they have the other commitments that parents have, the devices, iPads. Those are all indirect competition. And to say that you have no competition is really not true. To understand what they're willing to give up, they'd have to give up the devices, other things the parents are doing, youth soccer, in order to do the playground. So think of it that way. To have no competition is really not true. Competition might be asleep, but they're going to wake up fast when you enter the market, and they may have deeper pockets than you. So try to anticipate what they can or would do once your innovation enters the marketplace. And we don't need to know the other players, and decide market size does not matter. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about just market size for a second. The number one cause of this was an analysis by a hedge fund group recently who analyzed 30 companies that they'd invested in. And the number one cause of failure for startups was no market for their product or service. The tech worked fine. The money was there. The leadership was great. But there was a mismatch between the customer's needs and the product or service that they had. Number one, by far. So don't start with the technology, start with the customer and divide it in broad terms, then work towards the technology. If once upon a time I was a designer, a product designer, and if we came up with something that the customer said was futuristic, I knew we had to start over, because like I think on the right side, if the existing market, if the status quo, if who we think we are, what we think we do is the larger circle, your concept sits outside that, is perceived to be futuristic or not connected, then you've got a real problem, and you'll have to spend lots of money educating people and or effort to change their ideas about what it is that you do. Let's go to our why the market size matters. Let's suppose that the top box there is the minimum we should do this for. We used to run this exercise in an industry I was in. If we didn't make $2 million, if the exercise showed us we didn't make $2 million, then we were going to do something else. So that's if you put $2 million at the top, you think about the size of the market, how many people are in there, the price they're selling it for, you'll come out with the amount of penetration. Now, how much of that market you need. Let me give you an example. Let's imagine that I'm going to start my own pizza place. There are 2 existing pizza places in town. It's a small town. Let's say each of them does 100 pizzas a night at $10 each, and they run for 350 nights a year. So your market size is $700,000 a year. Let's suppose I want to make 200,000. That's I'm not going to get into this unless I'm doing 200,000 in revenue. So my pizza place needs 29% of the market. This is used as a sanity check. What I'm proposing here is that I take market share away from those 2 existing guys. So why does this matter? Because if the market size was 3 million, then taking $200,000 a year wouldn't be that much of a reach. But given that I want 30% of the market and I'm just starting out, that's a reach. That's going to take some effort. We're going to need a crowbar and a stick of dynamite to do that. Anybody have questions about this?
There was a really good question in the chat, I think, about the previous image that you had up.
Okay.
Are you able to see that, Ian, or would you like me to read that out?
I cannot see it yet.
Sure. So Patrick asked about innovation, about where you want to be in the market. Do you always want to lie completely within the market expectation circle? Or is it better to be half in and half out in order to innovate or to be an innovator?
The
matching with expectations of
yes.
the market.
Yeah, and differentiation. If you're sitting at dead center of that existing market, you'd better have other reason that somebody would come to you rather than the others. Is it price? Is it some hidden sauce that you not obvious? So sit on the outside and possibly slightly you have to change people's opinions is a good thing, because you're going to have less direct competition. You're more likely to be able to set yourself apart and perhaps charge a few margin points more than your competitors because they're not able to match you exactly. The disadvantage of that is that you're going to have to market yourselves more seriously. The value proposition is not as obvious. But thanks for the question, Patrick. All right, so talked about market share. It's really critical to understand fundamentally it's trying to give you a sense of how much effort you're going to need to get the money you want out of this. That's what this calculation is all about. So if we look at the other competitors, please, if you're entering any market, try to dissect those folks so you know them better than they know themselves. Here's a breakdown. If in whatever market you're in, put somebody across the top and then the strengths, weaknesses, comments, anything else you know about them down the left-hand side, and then work that out until you understand why somebody's succeeding and why others are struggling. So that you know when you enter that, you know what your strengths and your weaknesses will be, and that they will make a difference in the marketplace. That's the goal of this. Understand your competitors. You're never alone. No engineer should start without a price target. Are we going to differentiate on values or features? On value or features? What is it that we're offering? We cannot, it becomes close to art if we just are inventing stuff. Let's understand the box, understand who we're competing against and what it is that we're doing. What does success look like? And you're only going to get that through studying the competition. A prototype. We're going to move into prototypes. Watch these other monsters in the jungle here.
All right, before you bring on another monster, we do have one more question in the Zoom about the last one. Market share. Jeff asks, how do you utilize market share calculations with, and here's the example that he poses, how do you utilize market share calculations with high value, small market opportunities, especially when there are long-term support opportunities, i.e. service and maintenance following on. So a tricky projection, perhaps, to
utilize market share calculations with high value, small market opportunities.
And Jeff, if you wish to clarify or add further like example, I invite you to come right into the conversation here too.
I guess I could do that. I'm just curious on, you're looking at $1 million units, but there's only 50 units worldwide.
Oh,
It'll be in play for 10 years and you'll have opportunities for service contracts just over those 10-year lifespans.
yes. That's an excellent question. And the long-term relationship, or there's an acronym for this, but total revenue from the relationship over time is a very, in those business, especially in the business to business situations, is a really important calculation to do. I would mostly not use the formulas I was giving you for this kind of relationship, because it's more about the long term. I'm talking more about a customer product. I'm talking thousands of units to millions of units a year. It really doesn't relate much to the kind of opportunity that your client is facing, Jeff. All right, let's talk about prototypes. So I want to define my terminology here before we jump in, and that is, I'm going to use the prototype as any model from which we learn something. If we don't learn anything, or if there's a chance of not learning anything, we probably shouldn't be doing it. If you succeed the first time, then you're probably not doing something very innovative. And if innovation is related to margin and potential penetration, then you'll need to have a new value proposition than the market currently has. So if we take that model of what a prototype is, then every time we touch it and make it real, I'm going to use that phrase because that's how I think of prototypes. We're making it real. We're bringing it from the head, between the ears, down onto the paper or into a model. We're making it real. We can play games inside our head about how big it is or what it costs or whether it fits or whether it's sky blue, pink, or yellow. But once it goes on to making it real, then we're forced to be honest. And that's the opportunity with a prototype of any kind. I'm giving examples here from the far left, from the idea through to the far right. They get progressively more serious, more detailed, more finite. You can fool yourself over on the left about whether it's elephant or a giraffe, but by the time it gets to the right, you'd better know exactly that it's 12 volts and 3 millimeters and exactly what RGB color it's going to be. So when we use that term of prototype, it's an extremely useful and powerful tool that we use in product development. It can take us almost anywhere once we start prototyping. But there are two major misunderstandings. It works. Hey, great. Now we have a product. And we need to make it work so we can show it to customers. They've both got huge problems. And I would encourage everybody on this call to throw those notions about what a prototype is away. I think we use the idea of a prototype because because it's harder for us humans to think in strategies or abstract ideas. So we go to stuff. But let's assume that you get a prototype. What would you do with it? And that's where it starts to get interesting, because if we know ahead of time what it is you want to do with it, then we can design the appropriate step for you to take. So it's really important with prototypes to work backwards. I need a prototype to do what? What am I making real? To whom? What am I doing? And why does it matter? Who's going to be persuaded by what it is I'm going to do? And this is absolutely great. This is the bedrock of this conversation today. Making it work does not equal measuring the value of making it work. What do I mean by that? I mean that because it works doesn't mean that anybody cares about it working. And so it's useful to put the least amount of effort into the prototype, defined in the broadest possible way, so that we can defend ourselves against problems that come from actually building it. We can do things faster, cheaper, and so forth. So we need to listen to the customer and try a sketch. You want a skyscraper? Is this the kind of skyscraper you want? You don't want to be welding steel and have iron workers, local 550 on the site and still be changing your mind. So let's model it, let's prototype it, let's illustrate it, let's test it as early as possible in the cycle. And one way to do that, if you're building an app, is not to do coding at all. There are many apps out there now that allow you to build a model that looks like a real website on a mobile app, but you're doing no coding at all. And that's the kind of prototype that breaks that equation between because it works doesn't mean that anybody cares. You need to know somebody cares and then make it work. And that's what these kind of apps do. So let's make sure we're on the same page here. When we think about moving from left to right, down from the beginning of the project to the end, at the beginning, you can change almost anything. But the further you go down to the right, the less change is possible. But it becomes more real. We had a CEO of an organization that I worked for who simply could not process a sketch. If you showed him sketches and you said, do you want an elephant or a giraffe? And you drew each of those, it's not, he couldn't do it. He had to see it. It had to be as real as possible, high def. It had to be absolutely real for him to be able to make a decision or be a part of the decision-making process. That is an enormous problem. And because this is the final, ultimate decision maker, and he couldn't seem to make a decision until we were finished. So it was a huge challenge for us. The more the money is spent, the harder it is to change. For example, if you fix the project brief with a couple of spelling changes, it might cost you $10 to fix. If you're trying to fix it on the designer sketch, it might cost you $100, CAD and so forth, all the way down to a shipped product. And $1 million is the very, that's just play money on fixing something in a product that's already in the customer's hands. So the earlier we can make it real, the prototype, whatever it is we're proofing, the earlier in that process, the more money we save, the faster it is we get to the right answer. And that's really the takeaway from today. Let's test, let's prototype, if that's what we want to call it, but make it real to people who are going to make the decision, optimally the customer themselves. And then we're going to have some meaningful information that we can use to go down the production line. So everything should be secret, right? We should keep it all secret. We should be never letting anybody know, especially those bad people who might steal it. Well, there are downsides to that. The Segway was introduced in 2001. Dean Kamen, he's the center of the lower right image. He's on the back Segway, and the top image was notoriously paranoid, genius, but absolutely paranoid, extremely convinced of his own insight. And of course, he had Jeff Bezos and other people around him telling him it was wonderful. But if the tech works and we think we can make money, let's go. Remember those three circles? We have the viability, desirability, and feasibility. They had the viability and the tech all down cold. It was awesome. They were singing and dancing. In fact, they built a factory that would make 6,000 Segways a week. A year after introduction, they were building 10, 10. And they'd never, literally never, had a potential buyer look at it. They were so secretive. It weighed 200 pounds. It was $5,000 approximately. They gave 100 of these at cost to the Villages retirement center in Florida. And a year after they gave them to those folks, almost nobody was using them. People who used them were seen as not cool, as not a part of the retirement community they wanted to be a part of. And the saga ended 2 years ago. That's the downside of secrecy. You could be right, great, and nobody knows it, and you're going to have a big splash, or you could be really wrong. So there are downsides to keeping it all to yourself. We have a culture, a mythology around invention that has benefits, but it has downsides. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Build a better mousetrap and the world will beat a path to your door." I had somebody say to me, "You invented that. You must have made a fortune." We associate money with invention, and that's not necessarily harmful, but it does lead to people thinking they can build a prototype and sell it to a manufacturer. And it just isn't that easy. This is the Hewlett-Packard garage in Palo Alto. January 1st, 1939, Hewlett-Packard started in this garage before Palo Alto was Palo Alto. And it's still preserved today. It's a part of the garage invention mythology that we have. But it does lead people to thinking they can raise some money, that they can make an invention, and then they'll sell it. And this is the reality of licensing, or these are some of the realities. The idea must be something the manufacturer would not have generated on their own. We, at several companies I've been at, we would throw away, well, if you consider the beginning of the funnel, at least 10 ideas before we got one that works. And if somebody came to us with an idea that was already rejected, then that's a non-starter. It just simply won't get any attention. It has to be highly evolved. It can't just be, hey, look at this, I got this really cool little thing. Look, it's awesome, isn't it? No, you've got to have all kinds of backup, how you're going to tool it, how it would be made. But there are industries in which the business model incorporates the inventions. The toy industry, for example, I know Hasbro has a vice president of inventor relations. It is a part of the business model. On the other hand, it was like pulling teeth to get because we did, after many people came to us, we did choose one person to work with, and getting them paid was just a nightmare. The accounting folks must have, well, I know that they told me to my face that it was not a good idea. We can't do this, it's hard, it's difficult. So there are industries whose business couple incorporates inventions. Insider knowledge is extremely valuable. Don't come to people in the playground industry and talk about volumes like injection molded volumes where you're doing thousands a week. That's simply not appropriate. The manufacturing processes are entirely different, much lower volume. So you've got to understand what you're asking of the company. And you must be able to imagine yourself successfully defending your idea in a court of law, that it's going to be fundamentally different than the competition. And why? Yes. This is another animal that in the jungle safari that we're on that wasn't listed at the beginning, but the patent is a distraction, really. It is, I have a patent on this idea. It doesn't mean anything other than that nobody's done it before. This is a patent that was issued in 1882 for a mouse or a varmint killing device. It uses a standard revolver at the time. But there may be a reason that nobody's done it before. It doesn't actually mean what people seem to think it means. The patent office is not determining that it's worth anything to a buyer. So as far as a checklist goes, if you think you need a prototype, it would be productive if you could describe the problem to solve in a broad sense rather than this particular thing. It'll be useful to you and to us. If you quantify the approximate size of the market, it is a $500,000 market or it is a $500 million market. That is a very different places to enter, or they require different challenges of the person or company entering. If you identify the direct and indirect competitors, it will really help you understand your value proposition. If we can ID a target street price or a target cost, we can work both ways, right? If you have a street price and you understand that the wholesale is going to take half or the retail is going to take X%, then we can work backwards to a cost. But either a cost or a street price is absolutely essential, rather than saying, hey, I want this thing. Think about how it's going to be distributed. Is it going to be direct to consumer? Or is it a wholesaler model that you're targeting? And then talk about what the prototype is meant to accomplish and for which audience. So that, for example, there's such a thing as a looks like prototype, and there's a works like prototype, and they can be two different machines, and they can be in two different spaces, so that the viewer can say, okay, it's going to look like this, but it's going to work like that. And so you're proving both that it's valuable, that it's palatable visually, aesthetically, and that it produces the effect that you want. Or perhaps it's simply saying, is this possible? Is this feasible? Those are very different things. To talk about prototypes in general, it really isn't useful to you or to us. And if all of those can be satisfied, I'd love to talk to you. And that is a time for us to open up to questions. Any questions, comments, or questions in the chat I did not respond to?
Well, first off, thank you very much, Ian. And also thank you to our attendees today for being highly engaged. Enjoyed seeing your questions in the chat. And also jumping in on microphone. Let me amplify Ian's invitation. What further questions do you have? What else do you want to hear about?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So our company is ready to build a prototype of a large wind turbine generator for which we have the patent. In which we already have a customer. I would like to put everything we have together to run it by Ian to see what we have forgotten to look at, so to speak. And is that doable? We're in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania.
Oh, we're a couple hours north. Or
I know where Bucknell is.
Okay, yes, we're at Bucknell.
So what process would you want us to do that? And is there a charge?
Let's start with a Zoom call.
Okay.
And we'll go from there.
All right. How do we arrange this? We're tantamount to getting started. So, sometime soon that would work for you, would work for us.
Okay. My email is on screen there, ianproud@bucknell.edu.
Okay. All right, I'll send you some information, Ian, and then we'll set up a Zoom call, please.
Great, thank you, John.
Sure.
Anyone else?
What services does does the university there or your group give?
So we have two sides to our offerings. We have the business centers that SBD centers throughout the state, and the services that they would offer. We serve 6 counties in Pennsylvania, and for those counties we would offer some digital support and so forth. But over on my side, which is the engineering side, we offer some strategic planning. We can help you think about what it is you're doing there. We can look at electrical, electronic. We can talk about anything from chemical through environmental services to engineering, more conventional mechanical engineering.
And Ian, I'm going to prompt you, if you cannot yet see the chat, alter how you're displaying your screen, because we do have a lively series of questions for you to respond to. Thank you, everyone, for dropping those into the Zoom chat. I'd suggest going back up to the I think Tony's, and then
Tony's.
Yep.
So Tony asked, my reasoning for prototype is to ensure my customer base via product safety certification. I can satisfy all the requirements of the checklist. Okay. Tony, let's talk.
Okay, yeah, I have an invention. I went through the preliminary original patent process. And one of the things I've been trying to do is trying to get a decent prototype created. But I also understand from your conceptual idea of actually spending that kind of money could be circumvented if you can have some fairly good designs, CAD drawings done. I've been trying for months to network with an engineer that can help me take and polish my designs. I've done a fairly good job of things. I've been working with the Customer SBDC and the center over at Alberta University to take and bring this idea to market. I've gotten positive feedback from the NSF, NIST, and the Department of Interior. It's just that trying to get from that idea to prototype is a fairly expensive process, but I realize if I can get a decent engineering schematic done or CAD drawing done that I can package with the information that I already have will
Okay.
probably get me a little bit more attention from the people that's got the money to get this idea developed.
Okay, let's have, did you catch my email address on the bottom of the screen there?
Ian Proud at Bucknell EDU. Yeah.
Let's make contact that way and see if we can help you.
I will definitely reach out to you in the next 24 hours.
All right, sir. Thank you. All right. What services the SBDC offer? Steve, do you know much about Invent Help, and can you compare what we do with them?
Yeah, love to jump in on that. So first off, and if you can imagine me speaking in all caps and bold and italics right now, do very diligent research about what an invention submission firm is proposing to you. I have counseled many inventors throughout my 15 years of service at the Bucknell SBDC about their steps to bringing their ideas, their inventions, their technology to market successfully and making a profit while doing so. That is the basis of the assistance of the small, let me add an underline to this next word, small business development center. We are not the invention development center. We are the small business development center. So everything that Ian was referring to today is in the context of doing so as a business and making a profit doing so. The key question to ask an invention submission firm is how many of their clients that they have charged fees to have made a profit based on their services. The percentages of invention submission firms, the percentage of their clients who make a profit after being charged sometimes $5,000, $10,000, $30,000 in consulting fees is astronomically small. So be very, very wary of engaging the services of, as these are termed, invention submission firms. On each and every one of those firms' websites, you can also find that information. They have been required by law after numerous lawsuits filed by their previous clients. They are required by law to publish that information about the success rates of their clients.
I had a question going back to so this is the second product that we're bringing to market. The first one, we bought our own. It morphed into the place where we bought our own tooling. And so it's a very niche market, and we sell about 10,000. So we're nowhere near that 2 million, about 10,000 a year, and we make about 100,000 profit on those. And so whenever you say 2 million, you wouldn't even consider going forward without the 2 million. We're thinking of this new tool that we've got our third prototype. We're trying to, and it's been on market, but I didn't like the way it worked. So we're trying to get it to really work well, like exactly I wanted. But it's anyways, we're certainly not going to make 2 million a year. It's a very niche type thing.
Kathy, please don't get distracted by the numbers that I was applying to what was close to $1 billion market. And so us getting $2 million out of it wasn't a hard lift. And we were a $90 million company. So it isn't the scale is vastly different. I just threw that number in there. What we used to talk about as being successful for us, and considering we had to put in sometimes as much as $250,000 in tooling. And that probably gets us close to answering another question here from Jeff. Is a recommended cost value that should be spent on the development process versus the value of the market opportunities? That's a business plan, Jeff. That is, if I spend this, how long did it take me to get it back out again? And what return on investment am I happy with? Those are things you can work with your local folks, with the local business consultants. We are sort of a consultant to them, but those kinds of things, it sounds to me like a standard business plan would include.
Okay.
Daryl asks, are there many best practices to follow when it comes to funding prototypes? Also, is it better to focus on a single prototype at once, or should the team have multiple threads working simultaneously? Wow. So, Daryl, you and I should go and sit down for a couple of hours together. I'm going to really struggle to be concise in my answer, but I'll try my best. It depends somewhat on whether you're following a milestone process. Oh, maybe that's too complex. So a milestone process would be after development, you have to present to somebody and they bless you, and you allow you to go on to the next stage, or versus an agile process. If you've got a tight team and they are accountable more or less to themselves, then you can be much less structured about how many prototypes that you're doing at once. But I would caution you to go back to my question. What is the prototype meant to prove? And who's the customer? What are we trying to accomplish by doing this? And who is the, I won't say the customer, but to whom are you trying to prove it? And if the answer is to yourself, you're trying to prove it to the team, then it becomes a lot more fluid because there's much more ability to look between the line, join the dots, as it were. But another way of answering your question is to think about what depends on the answer from the prototype. For prototype one, let's call it prototype one. If prototype two, or the next stage, depends on the answers from one, then you've got limited ability to do them in parallel. But I think that if you were to give me an email, Daryl, we could explore that a little bit more so I understand your situation. Please do reach out to me. Tony says, I've been trying to network with an engineer for someone to polish a design I have clear concept for. Okay. What is your recommendation for going through the certification process? Jeff asks, what is your recommendation when going through the certification process, such as UL, CSA, within the development stage? My experience of that, we were developing computer hardware at the time. And yes, it wasn't yesterday or the day before, it was a while ago. So maybe things have changed, but we didn't used to, that's not true. We had somebody in-house. We had a UL expert CSA compliance person in-house. And at that time, we were doing milestones. So they were not a part of the team. We would go to them and say, is this work that we're doing going to meet the guidelines? And then if we got yes, we would go further down. So if your design, your concept going to require UL certification, you'd better make that person a part of your team. You want to be finishing their sentences and them finishing yours. If that's not possible, then check in with them frequently so that you don't get surprised at the end. You don't want to put all that work in and then fold their arms and look at you like you got 3 heads at the end. Chris asks a really important question that I probably was not clear about. I do serve the entire state of Pennsylvania from our engineering function. I'm realizing that the words that I use may not have been clear. My local center serves 6 counties. We in engineering serve the whole state. So as long as you're in Pennsylvania, we can talk. SBDC,
and I'll remind people 2 things that have been asked a couple times, or maybe 3 times. Find Ian's slide deck at eCenter, and I just added the link to that again. That is how you registered for this session. So that email that you received from the Bucknell SBDC from Shelley Godori from our team, that has your login credentials, but in the chat is the eCenter. Download the slides from that associated with today's presentation. And the second reminder is there are SBDCs throughout the state of Pennsylvania. And the ideal place for you to start is connecting with a business consultant. In fact, there are several business consultants from centers throughout the state of Pennsylvania throughout the PA SBDC program here with us today. So let's see if he's still here in house. Will Hooten, for example, is joining us from Penn State SBDC. Also here are colleagues of mine and Ian's from Bucknell SBDCs. Amber Guerrero is here. Maybe if I'm scrolling down here, Denny Hummer as well. So these are among the business consultants who will connect with you, who are available to you. And here's a great reminder, at no charge and confidentially, to advise you, to provide you resources, to provide you informational resources valuable to your business so that you can make smart decisions about moving forward with your plans and moving forward with your business endeavors to provide your products, your services, your technology to customers.
Steve,
with a little